Ladies and gentlemen, you are at Why So Sidious. Thank you for joining. It's myself, Jeremy, and Andy over here, and we're going to cover Jonathan Hickman's Ultimate Spider-Man, Volume 1 through 3. As a podcast, this is the first comic series we've covered that is current and ongoing, so that is exciting for us.
Mm.
For me personally, I have spent like a decade catching up on Marvel and DC's history, and I'm finally in a place where I am current, so this is exciting. I'm glad to cover this. And yeah, we'll get into it. We are at Why So Sidious Pod, TikTok, Instagram, X, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, most podcast platforms. And we just dropped our Nerd Therapy introducing Andy, well, not introducing because many of you have seen him on the episodes before, but now he's an official member of the podcast. That was our first big episode. We dove into a lot of the MCU and Avengers Doomsday and stuff like that. So there's that. And then look out for our Week in Geeks covering nerd news. And that's it for intro talk. Andy, how are you today, sir? You excited to get into the comic?
Absolutely, man. This was a good read, to be fair. So I was like intrigued. I even obviously had to do a bit of backstory and back reading into like Ultimate Invasion to get into a bit more of like an idea of what was going on as well. So yeah, this was definitely worth a good read. And I love reading it in a short space of time as well. So it all crams in there, and it's not like waiting months for it to come out in between. So I was like, yeah, I'm definitely ready to get into this.
Yeah, it definitely had an episodic feel to it. Like I couldn't wait to see what happens next. And even finishing issue 21, again, like we talked about, there is a cliffhanger. So we're going to be very excited to get into volume 4 whenever it does come out. And apparently Hickman is not going to continue writing Ultimate Spider-Man, and that sucks. But that I hope that the ending will be climactic and worthy of an ending, not just a rushed finish to the series, because it has been pretty special. And as far as background to this comic, what did you learn about what happened before this comic?
So yeah, just learning about the Ultimate Invasion comic. So obviously, what's going on with the Maker, who he is, and going on with Howard Stark and Reed Richards, who's technically now Doctor Doom, and everything that was going on with a young Tony Stark as well, and obviously Kang the Conqueror thrown into all of that into the mix as well, and all the mystery behind who Kang really is, and the fact that the Maker sort of has half his head blown off and remembers, and obviously Howard Stark learning that things aren't as they should be, and that he's obviously basically him and Reed are trying to trick the Maker so they can set things right again. And then Howard telling Tony, a teenage Tony as well, it's not like it's Tony that we know in the MCU, that he's got to carry on what he's been doing, and this is I guess what leads into Ultimate Spider-Man as well. So yeah, it was good to learn a bit more history behind it, exactly what's gone on, the mystery between about who Kang the Conqueror is, which I think we've got a pretty good idea. We even talked about, obviously there's some hints in through Ultimate Spider-Man as to the look of Kang and what's going on there. So yeah, I think some good mysteries leading into it, and it's obviously setting up just to tell the story of what's going on with the individual heroes who never got their destiny, so to speak, and are now trying to claim it back with the help of Tony Stark.
Yeah. So basically the Maker, well, and basically the Ultimate Universe looked very different before Hickman's Secret Wars. There was, the completely different Avenger. Like basically this is a complete reboot for the Ultimate Universe, period. So the Maker as Reed Richards from a different universe, who was a villain. Well, he had the bright idea to go back in time and stop heroes from becoming heroes. So that way, him and his cabal, or whatever you want to call it, this ultimate Illuminati, who are controlling everything, can have their way and can make the world the way they want it to without the nuisance of superheroes. So that's where this starts. Also, there was a huge explosion, killed many, many people that the Maker was responsible for, but framed Tony Stark for. And yeah, that's where we go. That's where Ultimate Spider-Man kind of starts. That's backstory from Ultimate Invasion. And Peter Parker starts here as an unpowered individual, married to Mary Jane Watson, has 2 kids. He even tells a story about how he did fight Flash Thompson, but this time he got his ass whooped. So everything's just a basic life for him. And issue 1 was all this until the very end, when a Tony Stark projection comes and tells Peter that he is supposed to be a hero. Someone has tampered with the future, or the past, and the reality. And Tony brings him the spider that is supposed to bite him and give him his powers. Tony also supplies him with a suit, a nice spider suit. Very, they call it picotech.
PK suit, yeah.
Is that like above nanotech?
Something, it must be something like that. I mean, we
Yeah,
discover a bit more about that suit later on, don't we? But yeah, Pico tech suit, something like that. Yeah.
yeah. So then after that, he finally gets a suit on. He goes to try to fight crime. I found it to be very realistically grounded and in a way where like his first meeting with Shocker went the way it did.
Mm.
So anyway, leading up to Peter Parker in this universe finding out he's Spider-Man and putting on the suit, how are you feeling about the comic at this point?
Yeah, so the start was, like I said, it was very basic, but it was very believable as to that's how the situation would go for Peter. I mean, you know, an older Peter married with his kids and stuff. He's just leading a normal life, to be fair. Although not the genius that he might normally be, because he's just still working at the Daily Bugle, isn't he? Just still doing his pictures and videos and stuff for them. It's not like he's become a scientist or anything like that. Um, and yeah, it's just when he does get the suit and everything, and suits up and he starts going out, he learns. I think the comic maybe skips over it a little bit, but he seems to learn all of his stuff pretty quickly, to be fair. And then that first meeting with the Shocker is hilarious because Peter's just so over the top friendly, and then he just believes the Shocker into it's like gullible Peter just being too nice and wants to believe everyone's still doing the best thing. And he's like, "Oh, my mum's ill. I really needed the money to pay for stuff." And then it just obviously kicks his ass. So yeah, it kind of, you have to believe that that's what Peter Parker would be like. He'd be very naive and gullible a little bit. So, but it was still a good start, very grounded in keeping him that way. Before obviously things start to escalate. But obviously at the start as well, we sort of see the what looks, obviously, what we don't know at that time who it is, but like the Iron Man Green Goblin suit, which I thought looked really, really good as well. I really loved the look of that, to be fair. So I was intrigued. I'm like, who is going to be in there? Is it a Green Goblin? Is it an Iron Man variant? Let's where's it going? It was, so the introduction to this and the start of this was good enough to get you hooked into the story, especially when you're finding out more about the explosion and the fact that obviously, you know, Aunt May's dead, Ben's still around, and all that sort of stuff going on. So yeah,
Yeah, and full spoiler alerts, by the way, moving
yeah,
forward. But about the bomb, we also learned that Norman Osborn died
yeah,
in that explosion. So all we
and his
have is
wife as
Harry.
well. Yeah.
Yeah. I did like a lot of the differences. They were very misleading, you know, when Peter
Mm.
walks into the Bugle and you hear Jonah Jameson, Parker, Parker, like you think this is just going to be your run of the mill meeting with J. Jonah Jameson again. Then he walks right past Peter and goes to Ben Parker. And so
Mm.
that's interesting. Not only is Ben alive, but he's best friends with J. Jonah Jameson. And they are like running the Bugle. They don't own it, or, you know, they're not board members. We see later that, you know, Fisk is
Yeah.
pretty much the main owner of the Bugle. But it is interesting. Ben and J. Jonah Jameson, best friends, running the Bugle together. My only issue is I thought they had a little too much screen time, page time. There was a lot of them, and half of it I, you know, really appreciated it, and half of it was just a little boring, little drawn out. It was like, give me a little more Spider-Man. But other
Yeah.
than that, they quit the Bugle and they decide that that's a little too corrupt and they're going to run their own business and give nothing but true news. So I do like the commentary on the like American junk news. I've been
Mm.
learning a lot about that recently,
Mm.
just feeding us bullshit when there's actually real important things to show the public. But anyway, so that's your commentary on that. They're going to go build their own um, news place, and that's the exciting part of that. When it's just them kind of hanging out and bullshit, and it's okay. There's too much of that, but I do like where their story is headed and their goals. So how you like that?
Yeah, I agree. There was maybe a bit too much Ben and Jonah screen time throughout of it. And Clown Mandalorian in the
Brando,
house with his new haircut and everything as well. Looking good,
let's
man.
go.
Um, but yeah, definitely a bit too much screen time for them. But like you said, the start though is that interesting dynamic when JJJ's walking through the Bugle office and he's like Parker, and you think, oh, well, Peter's going to get told off again, and he just walks straight past him. He's like, oh, hey, Pete, straight past him. He's like, Ben, and it's like, oh, okay. So I did like that dynamic from the start, but and as well, like I don't know if you do this, but obviously when you see reading into it and you see that obviously Fisk is the one, the head that owns the Bugle and is obviously sort of in charge of New York. When you're reading through Fisk's parts, do you have the voice in your head of Vincent D'Onofrio's Fisk from the TV show?
Always, yeah,
Because I'm doing that, I'm really like, "Argh."
always.
so, so it's always funny to me that I'm like just associating it with a TV character just to get the voice in my head. But yeah, I like that twist as well of Fisk being the one that owns it, and obviously them just wanting to concentrate on certain stories and like just like I guess like real life in a way, and the fact that those in power want to sweep the real stories under the rug and keep them quiet whilst focusing on making the public think otherwise. So I like that dynamic about it, and the fact that they wanted to break away and do their own thing, and they want to like not focus on the bullshit stories, I guess, and the things that sort of throw the public off the scent. So I did like that aspect of it and what they're doing, but yeah, I there were times when you're like, this is a Spider-Man comic. I know that you like to focus on side characters, but give me a bit more Spider-Man.
Yeah. Like at first I figured it was a purpose void of Spider-Man to make you feel this universe without Spider-Man. Like this is
Mm.
a universe
Mm.
that is missing one of its heroes, so it would make you feel that. So issue 1, I felt like that was necessary, but it really did continue throughout all 3 volumes. There was a bit too much side character stuff, even like MJ and Gwen maybe. Well, Gwen too, since we're getting into full spoilers. Um well, actually let me rewind because this is your first time through reading, right?
Yeah.
So this is my second time, so I got to see the seeds they planted for Gwen as Mysterio, and that's the big spoiler that you find out in Volume 3. But there are a lot of comments made in Volume 1, like, oh, why are you late? And she's like, oh, those corporate types, blah blah blah. Or when she first meets the rest of the Sinister Six, I think in Volume 2, one of them is like, did you get shorter from the last time I saw you? She's like, absolutely not. So they did drop seeds there, and I was really curious about that because that was a pretty cool twist in Volume
Mm.
3. We're kind of skipping ahead there, but still, you saw Mysterio show up every now and then it turns out that it's Gwen Stacy. And we haven't even mentioned yet that Harry Osborn and Gwen Stacy are married in this
Yeah.
universe. So, which
Yeah. Definitely.
we'll get more into Mysterio later, but we'll go back to Volume 1. The sit down with Gwen and Harry was actually pretty entertaining for me for just a lot of dialogue. They're talking about like their professions and Spider-Man's role in for society. That reminded me of the Dark Knight, just the Dark Knight
Mm.
conversation right there with Harvey Dent and
Yeah.
Christian Bale and their two dates. That was like the same conversation, almost the same scene. So I kind of liked that, and just I really liked the relationship with Harry. Uh, this is after he finds out that Spider-Man is Peter because his his armor is Stark Tech too.
Yeah.
Somehow he's able to kind of hack into Peter's system and remove his mask. So they become friends. He's a huge CEO. Gwen is a baller too, and then they're out on this date. How do you like that scene?
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. I thought it was. I mean, obviously, because of what we learn about Gwen later on, it kind of makes sense. But the way she almost talked down to MJ in a way about having a family and being a family person, that was like quite interesting for me because you just don't see that. Well, unless you've obviously read it already or you can see it coming from a mile off, you don't see the reasons why Gwen's so down on having a family, even though she's like, "Oh, we're trying." Or it's going to be in the future anyway. When realistically, she's not going to really go down that route because she's got a mindset on other things now. So I did like the fact that you're bringing in characters that are obviously well connected, but in a different way because it is the Ultimate Universe. And so I like that about different comic books when you can introduce characters in slightly different settings and mix them up differently. So here, obviously, having Harry and Gwen married was a little bit of a shock when you're like, oh, here's my wife, and Gwen Stacy walks through the door. You're like, cool, okay. I like that little subtle changes that you get with something like this in this sort of
Me
comic.
too. Yeah, and Harry's like my favorite character of this. I think I really, really like Harry in this. He's charismatic, yet he's not soft. Um, he does the goblin thing well. He's trying to get into the
Mm,
corruption. He knows about the Maker and his like Illuminati or whatever you want to call it in the Ultimate Universe, because when he got access to the Stark Tech, which was given to him by Fisk, because when
mm,
Norman died, Harry was inherited Oscorp, and then for whatever reason, Fisk was like, "Yeah, this Stain Stark company is pretty much just floating
yeah.
around in the water. So why don't you take this too? Comes with the armory." But deep in the Stark files was information on Fisk and the fact that he's being actually run by people hire. And then he makes multiple comments, never actually says the maker or anything like that, but he's talking about the people who are controlling Fisk and controlling this whole world and who manipulated history.
Mm.
So that's really interesting. I love Harry in this. It was a pleasant surprise. I've never liked him in a comic. He's never really played a decent role in a comic.
I think I liked him more. I mean, again, slightly skipping ahead perhaps, but when he comes back from his fake death, I liked him more after that. To be fair, I thought he was better in like Volume 3 than he was in everything previously to that. So, a
Okay.
character that grew on me after a while. To be fair, because I found him very, very arrogant up to that point, especially like later on in Volume 3 when he has to take a back seat to Gwen and her plan. But yeah, I just found him a bit too maybe over the top and arrogant to start with, and that he was very much like friends with Peter, but the way that he always spoke to them, it always felt like he was speaking a little bit down, like he was sat at a superior station to him. Maybe it's because of everything that he learned and the fact that he's now a CEO or everything like that. So yeah, it's a balancing act for the characters, but Harry definitely grew on me as we went through it.
Yeah. I like when they pick their code names and they're staking out Fisk or someone, and he's like, they already call him the Green Goblin, and he's like, yeah, they don't get to pick my code name. I pick my code name. Spider-Man's like, okay, what's your code name? He's like, well, I kind of like Green Goblin. That was funny. And Spider-Man staking out after Ben and JJJ were revealed to him that Fisk is super corrupt or whatever. He goes to stake him out, and he gets bored, and he's just sitting there, and he's like, oh, I got it. That's it. I'm going to quit. I'm an idiot. Ben's an idiot. JJJ is an idiot. Bingo. That was funny. But then right after that, he sees Goblin fighting Bullseye.
Mm.
So going back, that's actually how he meets Green Goblin. That was very interesting that we're seeing this different kind of iteration of Bullseye. Of course, a right hand, or not a right hand, but an assassin or something for Fisk. And they make quick work of him. And then, yeah, that's when Harry takes off Spider-Man's mask and everything. But there was some comedy. Hickman is such a good writer. He has little good humor quips, but he also has really good just little one-liners from whether it's Ben or Harry, even Gwen. So I do appreciate some of the dialogue. Even when it is slow, there's usually something interesting to pick out and appreciate. And this one ends with the Green Goblin interrogating Kingpin's right-hand man. I don't know if it was Wesley or not.
Yeah, it was Wesley, yeah.
Yeah, it was interrogating Wesley. That was pretty cool. I like that you get kind of a dark character right next to Spider-Man. Later, we see freaking knocks what's his name off of the building, and he doesn't die, but that causes some problems. It's a nice contrast to Spider-Man. You have some kind of dark situation in the Spider-Man stories, and that's how Volume 1 ends. The interrogation. I guess Peter's daughter finds out it's that her dad is Spider-Man, and they fix his suit to make it red. It started black, which looked pretty cool. And then in my opinion, Volume 2 is pretty slow. So how'd you feel about Volume 2? Let's get into it.
Yeah, I have to agree, to be fair. The 3, it's definitely the most low-key and everything, mainly because obviously they go off hiding and everything like this. And there's still quite a bit that obviously happens in it with them being captured and stuff like that and whatever. But it's definitely the slowest out of the lot. And they obviously focus a bit more on Ben and JJJ's new paper, the paper, I should say, and stuff like that. So it definitely was a slow down one. I just wanted to touch back as well on what you were saying about the comedy side of it, because what I found reading this, and then when I think back to other comics, when it's not a Hickman writing it, for example, is the difference in quality sometimes fluctuates so badly nowadays, and the fact that the story here is so coherent and flows really well, even if it slows down at certain points. But I think that can be the case in almost any story in a way. But the quality of writing for when Hickman's doing it to when others are doing it is just, there's such a big gap in the fact that it's Hickman because you can just see how well it does flow. It's just something that sticks out like a sore thumb nowadays when Hickman's doing a comic. And obviously we all know he likes to do longer runs as well. He doesn't like having to do like something that's only going to be like 4 issues or a miniseries or something, because he doesn't get the chance to get into it. But yeah, it was just the fact that you talk about the comedy, and that's just down to obviously how good he is at writing these stories, that he has the time to put all that in. And then, like you said, it just, like I was saying, it flows much better then into his story, and the balance and the quality is just so much better.
100%. It feels like real talking, a real conversation, whereas comics can have the problem of feeling not at all like a conversation. like, hey, I'm going to use my Octic Blast to blind you while I'm going to throw this rock and it's going to fall right out of your hand and I'm going to grab your weapon. Yeah. But no, that's good. He's great. Volume 2 is mostly about, like you said, the paper, but then also meeting our Ultimate Universe's
Mm.
Sinister Six. And it's kind of a weird group, like not my favorite Sinister Six, but it's all right. You got Martin Lee, so Mr.
Mr.
Negative.
Yeah.
Walter Hardy, some Zorro looking dude that I'm not a fan of, that I don't even know. You got Craven, then Mole Man, then Mysterio, and then your Kingpin. I guess he's one of the six. But how'd you feel about the Sinister Six here?
Yeah, it definitely was not the usual mix that we've had. And the fact that they want to do it quickly as well. So Hardy gets injured because he gets thrown off the roof, and so therefore he puts his daughter to be Black Cat as well, and she's like linking up with Richard. Um, so that was always a bit weird in the fact that they establish a Black Cat, but then it doesn't really matter because they incapacitated him really quickly, and now you've got his daughter acting as Black Cat instead, and she's going out there. And we're going to get to obviously what Richard get up to, like Peter's son, because he takes on the Pico suit because Peter doesn't like having that suit. He wants a different one that's designed for him. So it's going to be. It was interesting to see that Sinister Six because I'm not sure it quite really worked together, and they all seem to be conspiring against each other as we go through it anyway. So it's not like it was the perfect mix of a Sinister Six, and they didn't really seem to do a lot together. Because obviously Mr. Negative then goes against them quite a bit. So yeah, not my favourite mix of Sinister Six. Sorry, just to recap what I was saying, but I was saying about obviously Hardy's Black Cat passes on to his daughter, so that's already sort of one of them out the Sinister Six, even though he's still in the background. They're all kind of pitting against each other. They're not very cohesive together, and like Kingpin just reminding them that no matter what they do, they're all under his control forever. So didn't seem like the most coherent Sinister Six that we've ever seen.
Right, and not very like threatening. I mean, they worked Walter Hardy pretty quick. Martin Lee, Spider-Man beat Mister Negative and his goons pretty quick.
Hmm.
But Volume 3 is when things heat up with Craven. I really like that issue. But before we get into that, we'll stick with Volume 2 because the other thing that we dealt with a lot was Dr. Octopus tampering with or like kind of studying Spider-Man and Harry Osborn's suits. That was probably my favorite part of this volume, just seeing them kind of dig into the suits. And Harry has the Stark 1.0, and Peter's suit is kind of a 2.0 Pico tech that Doc Ock is having trouble figuring out. He even tries to get his hands on it and gives Peter like an alternate suit, which that was scary for a second. I was like, please don't wear this. He doesn't. He just refuses. They also upload the consciousness of like an AI interface, which they had the option for that to mimic like Caesar, Napoleon, Gandhi.
These were weird
Peter,
ones, weren't they?
yeah, Peter picks himself, and then Harry picks his dad. So the one thing I like about that is kind of the conversation of how you talk to your children and the confidence that they will manifest later in life due to how you talk to them. And you could just see how Harry gets spoken to. And you can see Peter's inner consciousness, inner voice, which is no surprise. But why would you put your dad in there, dude? Just a history of talking down to you and stuff. That was just a decision I didn't really get.
I thought they were both weird decisions because why would you pick yourself first of all? Because I don't want to talk to myself all day. I don't really like talking to anyone in normal life. So I don't like having to talk to myself all day long. And then yeah, picking your dad, who as we see later on, just tells him how weak he is and talks down to him the whole time, and just tells him what a disappointment he is. So I mean, I think there was one moment, isn't it, maybe where he gets put down. Was it by the Shocker or somebody, or maybe Bullseye hit him with something, and he goes down in his suit, and it looks like he's about to get Peter, and he's like shouting, like the AI dad shouting at him to wake up and get to it, and it's like, come on! It's like, okay, yeah, this is definitely a bit of a weird choice. I wouldn't have picked any of those. I wouldn't pick my dad or myself to be my own AI. So yeah, weird decisions by the two of them on that one.
Yes. And the last thing to point out for this volume, I guess, would be that Harry gives Ben and JJJ the files on whoever's on top, running the world,
Mm,
running Fisk, hands over the files to Ben and JJJ because Spider-Man says he could trust them. I thought that was cool. I like how Harry, you assume that he's a Green Goblin and he's going to be bad, and his behavior is kind of dark and sinister, but he never crosses that line.
mm,
And I think he is purely a good guy, just a little darker. But then you're sitting there questioning it the whole time, like, "Ooh, this Green Goblin, is he bad?" And the characterization of him kind of seems like he's darker. Like he says things, half of his face is shaded. It seems like he's dark and sinister, but I don't think he really is. So I really kind of love that dynamic of confusion.
I mean, the whole dynamic is still interesting, even when it's like the main different characters mixing here. Because obviously, I think early on when they set up the paper, Gwen's the one that ends up funding it. Um, and so it's just like interesting dynamic that Harry's the one giving files, and then they've got other people from the Bugle giving them files as well to sort of like talk about to give them information on like Fisk's corruption and stuff. And then Gwen's the one that's funding the paper as the CEO of Oscorp, and stuff. So yeah, all an interesting dynamic between all of them on that just continues throughout all the comic as well. So I mean, was it Volume 2 where Richard starts wearing the PK suit? Or was
Oh
that
yeah,
3?
that's the end of volume 2 because
Mm.
Mary Jane wakes up and Peter's standing there, but it's really not Peter. It's the suit looking like Peter. Um, and then volume 3 starts when we kind of figure all that out. Like Peter's son is like, "Stop looking like my dad. Just look like a Spider-Man suit." Last thing before we move on from volume 2, if you had that suit and Doc Ock said, "Upload a consciousness for yourself as your AI interface," who would you choose?
Yeah, that's a tough one because, like I said, I'm definitely not picking my dad. I'm definitely not picking me.
And you could
Um,
pick characters too. I was going to pick a
hmm,
character.
yeah, I mean, it'd be a tough one because immediately I want the voice of Darth Vader, but I don't want the personality of Darth Vader.
Kill them. Kill them
Exactly, yeah.
all.
So that would be a rough one to pick, to be fair. But yeah, it'd definitely be a tough one. Because again, the kind of characters I love. I can't really, again, I couldn't really pick Frank Castle. Because that again, it's just telling me to kill everyone. Maybe I should just kill everyone. I'm a villain in this scenario, clearly. So yeah, it's just a tough, yeah, because all the people I like in comic books and films just murderers.
Dude, I'm going with tactical. I'm putting Captain America
Fair,
as my AI interface
fair.
because he's AI interface. All you need is like logic and decisions and like guidance on what to, you all you need to
Yeah,
do is put someone in there that makes good decisions, good tactical decisions, and who's not going to talk down to you. He'll be very nice doing it.
that's a good choice. To be fair, there's me just thinking of like, oh, who's my favorite characters? I'm not thinking sensibly about who's going to be the best person to help me out in this situation.
Yeah. Oh, and then volume 3.
Mm.
So, man, now it starts with Craven like launching Harry and Peter into a hunt. They're in the forest making sure they survive. Craven's after them. And dude, I thought that was pretty sick when Peter just kind of goes off for a second, breaks his gun. He said, "You thought you can kill someone like me with bullets?" Snaps that thing and just such a dominant dude in the art, the fire everywhere. I was into that issue. I think it was issue 14. But Craven versus Spider-Man and Harry, baby. We're pretty much just Peter Parker and Harry, and Peter just dominates. I could have used a couple more pages of an ass whipping. That was so awesome. But probably the most satisfying moments so far in this series. I thought that was cool.
It definitely was, and I thought that even like Craven dropping a cold line in the fact that when he looks like he's obviously after he's taken his beating from Spider-Man, and Spider-Man's like, no, I'm not going to kill him. That's not who I am. That's not what I do. And then obviously Craven pulls out a gun and he shoots Harry. Well, we think Harry anyway, in the middle of the forehead, but obviously shoots through Peter's body to get to him. And Peter's like, why didn't I sense that you were going to shoot at me? And he's just like, who said I was even aiming at you? So
Yeah.
it's just like, oh god damn, okay. You just like shoot through Spider-Man to get to Harry. That was pretty cold as well. I thought there was a
Yeah.
good ending to it, to that way. And then obviously the trauma that you're thinking of, crap, Harry's now dead. Because
Yeah.
I didn't know if he was actually going to come back. I thought this might be just the way that Spider-Man carries a story on by himself, as opposed to obviously Harry joining. So yeah, definitely, I did love that little fight through the Savage Land, and then obviously a bit more thrown in with more Man and Mysterio, and learning that they're a bit more in cahoots, and they've got like a little deal going on than we thought. So um, definitely an interesting issue, that one. It was definitely, it kicks everything off really for this last volume, because the volume 3 is by far the best out of all of them.
I see. I don't know if I like volume 1 or 3 more. I really liked diving into a new universe and learning about how they are in the new universe, new characters, and then meeting Tony at the end. But looking through it, man, you might have to be right, because not only does he just dominate the Craven hunt, but then you get into the Mysterio aspect, which I found
Mm.
very interesting. And man, I gotta say, just the art from top to bottom. There's a couple different artists, but the main one, Mark Kiketto, is just so good, dude.
Yeah, he's
I
on
think this
point.
art's phenomenal. Like the Shocker hitting Spider-Man art, Green
Mm.
Goblin blowing stuff up. It's all so good. But how'd you feel about the Mysterio twist? Let's get into that. We see Mysterio popping up here and there. Um, Turns out to be Gwen. It turns out she was there during that gunshot that hit Harry. So I really like how they use this character to kind of go back in time and show that she was there. This is Gwen Stacy Mysterio. Well, really, it's
There's
a
five of
group
them,
of
isn't there? So,
Mysterios.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a whole group of Mysterios, including Quentin Beck is like old. He's kind of in charge of it all, right?
Yeah, it's like an old Beck. You've got James Wesley, Fisk's right hand man. He's one of them. One of the dudes from the Bugle, I can't remember his name off the top of my head. He's one of them there. And then I can't remember who the fifth one is. Um, that's escaping me. Oh, it's the sister, isn't it? Is it Harry's sister? Is the fifth
Is that
Mysterio?
is it the character that was talking to MJ in Volume 2 a lot? I kind of Anyway, I don't know
Um,
who the Mysterios are. They were all over the place.
It was just the fact that they saved that, I think, that big reveal at the end, for the last Mysterio, because we see the woman and they don't say her name, and then she says at the end, "Oh, of course I'm going to do something. That's my brother," and you're like, "Oh crap, okay." So I'm pretty sure that that's Harry's sister. Was the last one. So yeah, massive plot twist to me, finding out that there's a group of Mysterios and they're all planning. Well, they did have a long-term plan anyway, and Gwen's like, "I don't care anymore. I need to accelerate this and get stuff started." And so they're in cahoots with obviously several different people, Mole Man, like I said, and the fact that they're all there together manipulating things and getting information and doing it through the paper as well, to make sure that the public, obviously, opinion of Fisk can go down and they can dominate from that side as well. So, and I do like the bit that they sort of just go back and just sort of show Gwen's story from almost like from when the comic starts, essentially, and
Yeah.
maybe a little bit before that, when she's sort of sworn into the Mysterios, and to what the real situation is going on with the Maker and everything. So I do love that they went through that and that they showed everything. Um, the showdown as well that she has with sort of MJ when they sort of all go out for dinner after Harry comes back from the dead, and they're in that restaurant. Like MJ just sort of like cheap shots her in the bathroom. It's just wasn't quite
Yeah.
expecting that, to be fair. When she's just like, I've had enough. Like I've been stretched to my limit. I've done more than enough. I've run when I've told to run. I've done everything I can. I've looked after everyone, and now I'm like at my edge, and just punches Gwen Stacy in the face. So I wasn't expecting that one, to be fair. But
Right.
yeah, I did like how they laid out Gwen's story in Volume 3. Added a lot more to the story, I thought.
And do you think the Mysterios they're against Fisk? And are
Mm.
they going to help? Like, where do they stand in the spectrum of good and
Yeah,
bad? Like,
it's a bit weird as to where they stand, because that's not made sort of really clear as to whether they're
right?
doing this because they oppose like the Maker and the Council and everything like that, or whether they want to get control for themselves. Or I think Gwen's under the impression that they want to do it all to stop Fisk and to stop the bad guys, but it seems like there might be another play and being done under the table here that we don't know about, as to why would Quentin Beck bring them all together and do this in the first place. So it seems
Yeah,
like a play for power by an older Quentin Beck to maybe reset things in his favor.
yeah, and they're clearly against Fisk. I mean, they're like
Mm.
trying to bomb Mister Negative. They take out a bunch of those negative goons. That was pretty cool action there. I just feel like they're going to stand in the way of the heroes by the end of this. Like it kind of seems they seem too helpful right now, but it's obviously like they're going to be. They definitely very much have their own motives that don't align with Peter and Harry's, and it's definitely against Fisk and probably against the Makers. So I really want to see them. I want to see the Mysterios learn about the Makers and kind of see what they think of that Um, we know they're against Fisk. I don't know if they know about the Illuminati and the Maker, but they would have to.
Mm.
You'd think they would.
I mean, obviously, the very end of the comic lands on a massive cliffhanger of a bomb going off whilst the Mysterios are having their meeting, because Mister Negative seems to have got to a few people, including MJ. Outside of that, I think he was the one that was maybe in control of her will when she did punch Gwen Stacy, if memory serves. And then obviously a bomb goes off at the end, and so we're not even sure who's going to survive into the. You obviously maybe presume that Gwen survives into Volume 4, but obviously we don't even know right now if the other Mysterios are going to survive. But if they do, I think you've hit the nail on the head about. I think they're going to stand in the way of the heroes, because there's going to be an ulterior motive to what they're doing.
Yeah, and what I'm wondering is if Hickman is building to a climax for this run, or this run will have its own little climax, but really he's building towards his. I know the Ultimate Universe is building up to an end game. I don't know for sure if Hickman is writing that, but I'd imagine he will write it. So you got to wonder what's going to bleed into that, or what's going to stay central to this series. Because, yeah, this does end on a cliffhanger. We haven't even talked about Peter's son much, but basically Peter's son is wearing that Pico suit throughout this. And he also meets Black Cat. Didn't care much for their page time. Didn't really care much for the Black Cat character. She seemed nice until the very end, the cliffhanger portion. She leads him to Kingpin. So this ends with Kingpin has Peter's son. So that's a big deal. You imagine what he wants to do to Kingpin after what he did. I mean, look what he did to Craven. I can't wait to see him cross paths with the Kingpin. Super scared for the son. You never like to see the kid get grabbed up by the villain, so that's scary. And I hate waiting to see what's
he
next.
got out of it though, didn't he? Because the suit turned into Venom.
Let me look.
So, because like he's there, and the AI Peter in the suit is just like, "Do you want me to take control?" And he's like, "Yeah, okay." So he's like, "Close your eyes and let me do my thing." And essentially, the suit turns into like a giant Venom, doesn't it? And like just destroys everyone, and he manages to escape.
Are you sure you didn't go into issue 22? Because this just ends with Kingpin in front of the sun with Black Cat, and Spider-Man's asked Black Cat, "Why would you do this?" And she's like, "Isn't it obvious? It's my nature." And then that's how it ends.
Maybe I was misremembering then, because because there's no 22 out yet, so I haven't even watched that. So
that's weird. I wonder what's going on. One of us is missing something, but anyway, that's how this one ended. Because issue 22 is out. I'm pretty sure it's a single issue. It's not collected in trade form.
Oh, I was just trying to look through 21 quickly just to see if I could see where I got the information from, or where I thought that. Because that's Wesley. I'm just looking through issue 21 quickly now. So obviously, James Wesley's caught by Mister Negative because he's the one that takes the bomb, isn't it? And explodes that with the Mysterios.
Oh,
I have a little bit of backstory on.
Oh, dude, we're way off. This volume ends at number 18. So volume 3
okay,
ends
so we're
at
well
18.
ahead.
Yeah, yeah. Wow. So we got to change the title and everything. Oh, wow. That's so interesting. Okay. Well, that makes more sense that volume 4 is the last one because he's stopping at issue 25.
Okay. That was me thinking, I'm sure that's what I saw.
Well, now we all know how Peter's son gets out alive. That's so funny. I can't believe we didn't check that. But anyway. Yeah, so I guess we did cover all the content. Did we miss anything? Any other thoughts?
I mean, there was a moment when, because Tony Stark physically shows back up, doesn't he? At one point, I can't remember if it was like towards the end of Volume 1 or in Volume 2.
2, yeah.
And then he tells them that he'll be back in like 6 months' time, and then he just disappears again, and we don't see him again for the rest of so far for the rest of the comic. And I was sure that he was going to show back up at some point. He's done his thing where he set all the things into the past timeline to rectify. What is it like? Because it's Spider-Man, Captain America, Fantastic Four. I think there was someone else. So like the main comics that they named or the main heroes, sorry, that they named that didn't get their powers and that he's trying to fix. And so obviously I was a bit confused as to why Tony Stark then didn't come back, especially when the fact that his company's been sold off. I know he was framed and stuff, but his company was sold off. Harry's the one that's got all that now, and they're diving through it all, and they know everything. So why hasn't he come back to do more when Harry? You think that probably Harry's the principal person that that Tony would interact with because he's the one that's got his company. He's got all of his
Yeah,
tech. So I was a bit surprised that we didn't see more Tony in this, and come back to do a bit more. But what's also going to be interesting is I know that they're sort of doing the individual stories of some of the heroes in this, and they will build up to an end game, I think, where they all then obviously come back together to challenge the Maker and the Council and stuff. But it always does make me laugh when there's not more interaction or more crossing over. When the fact that like they're trying to rectify the timeline of different heroes that never got their powers, and then you'd think that maybe Stark would have had a plan where he brought them all together a bit sooner. Maybe it's easier to keep them
potentially.
apart, and
Yeah,
obviously
we'll
like
see.
as to not really like overload the Maker or force the Maker's hand in the Council in any way. But uh, in a way, yeah, you would have thought anyway that I would have thought anyway that there may be a bit more crossing over of heroes and that in those issues.
Yeah, I could expect more of that in the future because
Mm.
he's clearly building to something. But it made me think it makes it kind of exciting to look forward to interactions with this iteration of Spider-Man with everyone else. We've got to know him in this new universe so well. And I can't wait to see him like interact with your Thor, Wolverine, whoever else. And I've never really got that in comics because I'm already so used to them interacting and stuff. But this feels so different. It does
Mm.
feel kind of special, and everyone is so different in a very smooth, like not jarring way, but an intriguing way. Where I remember the previous Ultimate Universe, a lot of it was just a little jarring for me. It feels like they were just going for shock values sometimes just to make it all weird and different. I'd never really liked the previous Ultimate Universe, even the Hickman written
No,
stuff, even the
same.
Ultimates by Mark Miller that everyone likes. Didn't I mean the only thing I did like was the Miles Morales stuff.
Mm.
That was one of my favorite Spider-Man origins. He was really cool, but I'm really looking forward to seeing where this all goes. You could get more context on what Tony's doing in the Ultimates. They have just like that's their Avengers title for the Ultimate Universe. It's called the Ultimates. So he's in there. You can kind of see what he's up to. But yeah, the Ultimate Universe is going to lead to something called Endgame. We know that. So can't wait for that. Also, can't
Mm.
wait to finish this series, Ultimate Spider-Man. Personally, this is definitely one of my favorite Spider-Man runs I've ever read. So I think knowing Hickman, I think it should be a pretty cool climax. And you've already read half of it.
Yeah, yeah, I'm a little bit ahead. I just spoiled some of it. Sorry. Well,
Oh,
two questions for you quickly then. So, do you think that Tony Stark is Kang from the future? Because we've already pointed out that his suit is almost identical to the suit that Kang's wearing in the Ultimate Invasion comic, obviously that precedes this. And you mentioned Miles Morales as well. Given that this is a Spider-Man comic, and Miles Morales is one of the only one of two surviving heroes from the original world. Do you think he's going to come into play in this at all, or do you think they're just keeping him out of it?
both good questions. Wow. So Miles is in the 616 right now, I'm pretty sure.
Mm.
And I do see him coming over to this because that's like he's from the Ultimate Universe. That's where he originated, and he's out of place in the 616. And I could totally see them bringing him in. Tony Stark, I think they'll keep as Tony Stark, and I think they're just blending the characters a bit. Now, I can absolutely see a connection between Kang. What's his real name again?
Nathaniel Richards.
Nathaniel Richards. Yeah, I could see there being some kind of history or connection between those two characters. Yeah, but I don't think we're ever gonna like Tony Stark is King. I don't know.
It's just
I
because they're
don't have a
laying the
good answer.
seeds, aren't they? Because like again, when you said about like when you've read it before and then you go back and like with Gwen, they were like laying the seeds early on. If you sort of noticed them, and they're doing that a little bit with Tony and the fact that obviously his suits are like obviously probably maybe a bit coincidental, but it's a big thing to look at. And then in what was it, Ultimate Invasion, when he's asked what he wants his name to be, he decides I'm not going to call myself Iron Man. I'm going to call myself Iron Lad, which is obviously what Nathaniel Richards originally was before he became Kang. So it's kind of like to me that was all breadcrumbing and leaving the clues, but maybe it's a bit too obvious.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's a good call. Don't have an answer, but I like it. I like it. I think this universe is doing a great job at making it
Hmm.
different but smooth and interesting.
I need to investigate obviously some of the other comics from the series as well. in terms of I haven't actually looked into what other heroes that they're doing in terms of if they're doing like Ultimate Captain America, because he was, as we mentioned, one of the heroes that they sort of stopped from coming out. So
Yeah.
and which
They
other
don't have
heroes
Ultimate
they're doing
Cap.
thing.
They got Ultimate Wolverine, Ultimate X-Men, Ultimate Black Panther. Wolverine's like one of my favorites, though. Yeah, old Winter Soldier history for the Wolverine. He was the Winter Soldier. And the Ultimates is where you're going to find Captain America, though. He is a main player in that. Ultimates Volume 1 I really liked, but Volume 2 slowed down for me. I didn't even really like it, so we'll see how that goes.
Fair.
Yeah. All right, anything else?
I don't think so, buddy. I think we've covered everything, and maybe a touch more than meant to. But yeah, it's all
Sneak peek into the next episode for this coverage of Hickman's
cover your
Ultimate
ears.
Spider-Man.
Cover your ears. I didn't spoil anything, honest. It's all good.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning into Why So Sidious. Be on the lookout for our Week in Geek and also a Sidious Star Wars roadmap, where we kind of put ourselves in the shoes of Kathleen Kennedy and released a trio of movies, a trio of shows, and a trio of books or comics. Like, what would we release if we were in charge of Star Wars? So check that out. And otherwise, Andy, thanks for joining.
No, thank you, brother.
We'll see you all next time.